Organizing groups of people to achieve a common goal using proactive entrepreneurial behavior is what makes an entrepreneurial leader. My guest today embodies this. He has been a serial entrepreneur, but he found his true calling with a business networking organization called BNI and is currently the co executive director for Pune East and North region. When you work with passion, with your heart and soul, you will be rewarded, right? Sure enough, he was awarded the BNI CEO Award in 2018 for his contribution for development of best practices to support business owners in BNI worldwide. Bharat Daga, my guest today, serves on the strategic teams in BNI, which are into strategic decision making process. And this exposure has helped him to study organizational culture and team management through breakthrough thinking. He's also the author of the best selling book, It Starts With You: The Powerful Art of Communicating and Connecting with People for Business Growth, and Entrepreneurship 10 Inspiring Journeys into Business from Across the Globe, for which he has co authored. And he's here today to talk about his journey, what makes him unique, and some very effective leadership tips to help you in the networking world. Welcome, Bharat. Thank you so much for giving me your time and willingness to share your story.
Thank you, Aparna. Thank you for inviting me.
It's
great to be here.
I'd like to start by asking you to share one impactful lesson you have learned that has transformed your life.
One of in the introduction, though I say I'm a serial entrepreneur, let me explain what that is, what that means. Sometimes I believe I'm a serial killer of businesses in a funny manner, that I've just kept closing businesses down, starting new ones. And I entered my father's business, which was textile manufacturing, from which I shifted over to my grandfather's business because of whether that's another story, we'll talk about it, which is into textile distribution. From there, I went into pharmaceutical consumables. From there, I went into computer consumables, or rather, they were together. I was selling floppy diskettes when people didn't know how to use them or where it's put, in a computer. Let's put it there. And then I also dabbled in export and import, crazy stuff like rice, atta, fertilizers, and God knows what all stuff we were trying at that time as kids, much younger self of mine. And then went into financial planning. And finally, I think I got stuck with BNI. And now I'm moving ahead from there with a couple of things. So, couple of them kind of were not doing so well. Some of them did very well. It was doing well. It was great. But I kept thinking, when we're talking of mindsets and behavior, that what's with this idea of, a business after a business, and you shut down a business, and why not multiple businesses? Why shutting down? And I think one of the things which influenced that was that I need a learning curve. Till I'm learning something, it's exciting, it's a new business, it's wow, I can do this, I'm getting some new knowledge, some new skills. And after that, it becomes like, oh, it's routine, I need someone to take it over, I'm done with it, I can go on another learning curve. And so, thank God BNI became my last stop, because it's been 13 years and I've still been learning, and I'm learning again and again. And COVID helped again in that we had to suddenly, really kind of change around, and it helped. I was thinking of, why have I stuck to BNI? And it got me connected to something I learned in an Ascentive workshop. And they taught of something called a ECC. Now, ECC stands for an emotionally charged connection. So what's your connection with your business, so that it helps? And there was a story which really impacted me. And I thought that, yeah, this is the reason why probably this has been my, the most passionate of all the things that I've done. And it's a couple of years back. As I said, my second business was textile distribution. And I was doing it with my grandfather. And my grandfather used to live in Mumbai. And I used to be in Ahmedabad at that time. So I used to travel over there. And then so one day I traveled over there and he said, okay, let's go to office. So we started walking. He started walking. I started following him. And we walked about. And imagine, my grandfather at that time was almost 76 or something. And he was walking and he was fit. So I walked in, then we walked about 300, 400, 500 meters. And then we went and stood at a bus stop. Now, Aparna, you and me know, in India, a bus stop. And I was like, Dadaji, are we going to take a bus? So he said, yes, it's convenient. It leaves us right in front of the office. So I was like, okay. Now, you know what? He was living at Altamont Road. That's right next to where Ambani's mansion is, okay? And we were going to our office at Nariman Point. And I'm wondering, like, what are we doing over here? And so we got the bus. He was a senior citizen, so he got to sit. Luckily, the seat next to him was empty. I got to sit. And I asked him, actually, I want to know, why are we traveling by the bus? He said, it seems to be really bothering you. Let's get off of the next stop. Let's take a taxi. I said, no, I want to know. So he said, you know what? The office is a living will. It's all in your name. So it's your property. At one age, when the youngest cousin was going to turn 21, it gets distributed to all of you. And the house is your granny's. So he'd put it in my grandmother's name. So the house is your granny's. So nothing is mine. So right now I thought, let me save some money so that I can use it on something else. And the bus is convenient. It just stops here and it stops over there. Now, you know, what he said was less impactful. But the way he said it, when he was saying this, he had a smile on his face and contentment on his face, kind of. And that's when it kind of hit me that, you know what, this is giver's gain, if you think about it in a way, right? It's he's enjoying every moment, and he's enjoying the giving, he's enjoying creating things for others. And I guess that's what impacted that, and when I look back, most of my businesses were, how can I help more people? So financial planning, how do I help more people get financially independent? And that's how I guess this story has impacted me, and that's why BNI has become such an important part. Am I making a difference in people's lives? And so most businesses need a philosophy to run on, and I guess the philosophy of giver's gain kind of stuck to me, and it worked. So it's easy to practice at BNI, as you know, Aparna, and that's why it's kind of fun to do that. Right.
Simple yet impactful. I think that's a lesson that you have learned. And I'm curious to know about the learning curve. You said that you've given up earlier. You moved because you stopped learning. How do you keep the learning curve alive when you are a business owner? Because you invest a lot of things into your business when you get started. You will have, of course, a passion, the idea, the money. Is that so simple that, I stopped learning, so I move on? Was that an easy decision? Did I ask you a lot of questions at one
So
go?
not really. There are a lot of questions in that one, but
Yeah.
is it easy to close down a business and move on? For some, very difficult. For me, not so much, because I don't know. I always got the opportunity of doing something while I was doing something else. So it's almost like you attract what you want. And so, because learning was exciting, it kept doing. So every business taught me something. For example, even when I transitioned from my father's business to my grandfather's business, I didn't have a clue of channels of distribution. And the whole business was only distribution. So that was when you're representing a textile mill in a particular area, and they give you your free hand to build your dealer, distributor, your retailer network also, and all of it at one time. So if you have a retailer, why would the dealer take your fabric and keep it? Or why would a distributor want to get involved in that? That you're already supplying it to my client. That's where dealers supply to retailers. So you build this whole, so that was the channels of distribution. Now you won't believe it that while I was doing the work with my dad, just before that, I was doing my part-time MBA, and my desertion topic was channels of distribution. Can you believe it? For Crown TV. And so then this got attracted in there. From there, it happened in import export, where I learned a lot of things about, what are the payment modes of import or export. So it was just continuously doing that, going into rice mills, coming back home fully white with all that white rice being polished stuff. So it was all exciting, new, something different. And so learned when in the financial business, again, learned everything about financing, rules of compounding, the rule of 72, 108, there's so many things. And also looking at how people, what are their goals, how can you achieve goals, different instruments. So it was, as I said, kept learning and kept growing. So, but I believe any leader today has to learn. They will not be able to survive if you're not ready to learn today. And so I guess learning has become an important part, even if you're in the same business. Now, maybe I took the easier way by finding another one to learn, but you could actually do better at your business or whatever you're leading, even if you keep learning over there and adapting. For example, my financial planning business stood at this thing, and that's coming out in the next book, which is coming out, where we're talking of scaling up. And because of the fact that I didn't build a pipeline of people who could, especially for people like you and me who are, as a consultant, we are the only people we are working. But how do you build a pipeline? How do you make sure that, you can replicate yourself, or you can keep growing without, so time runs off short at one point of time if you're one person. So that's the learning which I didn't get at that time, which now I learned after coming at the next business. So it's, as I said, it's a process. Some you learn late, and so you end up, getting to a level and stagnating over there. You don't know how to go to the next level.
Right. You've been with BNI for over 13 years, right now?
Yes.
13 years. What has been your biggest learning here in BNI?
One of the things I learned about leadership over here was, leading is not about you, it's about others. That's something which hit me really, really clearly once I got into BNI. What that means actually is that, you're a leader only if you have a follower. Otherwise, you just think you are a leader. So you need followers to have leaders actually. And that is all about the others. Why would people think of you? So the things that I've learned, continuously keep learning, is building other leaders. So not being insecure about having people become as good as you, because then you need to get better all the time. So getting people to keep growing up in their level of learning, so that even you have to keep growing up. I would say the biggest change that I've found in these years is that I understand now that if you're leading, I thought it has to be more of that you got to shut off your feelings and emotions. But the more I've been in it, the more I realize that it's not true. You have to have that empathy. You have to feel what the other person is feeling. It's, they say sometimes when you're a leader, you have to, not be swayed by emotions. Agreed. Not be swayed. But have you got to keep emotions in mind? Yes, you have to. So the balance between that becomes the other thing that you have to, which has been a difficult journey for me, because as you know, I'm impulsive. I have a tendency. I love to engage in discussions and just speak my heart out rather than, So the idea of now becoming a better listener, I think has impacted leadership in a better way. Let's put it this way. So that's the third lesson. And finally, the last lesson that I'm learning right now is handling your anxiety. Sometimes leaders, when they are anxious, they pass on their anxiety to their team, to others. Now, I must say that I'm not alone in this. I'm happy that I have my co-exec Atul also. So, I have seen him being able to handle it better. And so I've started studying that and seeing that, yeah, all of us as leaders or business owners have goals, targets. You have some things you want to achieve, and that leads to stress and anxiety. But in the end, handling that is one part of it. The other part is not throwing your anxiety on others. So that's something I think a good leader, in any industry, will have to learn to handling their anxiety. So this is the learnings that I'm going through right now.
So since learning is followed by a change, typically, there's always a transformative process. You learn something and you want to adapt or adopt into your life, and hence there is a change. What do you think from the time that you started off early stages into the business to now, other than the fact that you already said you learned so many things, now you're learning how to manage anxiety. What do you think that you consider as your biggest transformation?
Okay, so what I've been told is that I can have more fun now with people around. Some of us are born witty, some of us are not. I was blessed not to be born witty. So it took me 5,000 jokes books to go through to understand that how can I ease off, or say something funny, or what's funny for that matter. And so that's one transformation that I think happened, was that you can have fun. You can let your hair down and you can still be a leader. Okay, you don't have to be serious all the time. You don't have to take yourself seriously all the time. The other thing I think I learned even before I knew Brené Brown or read Brené Brown, I somehow had got into this thing. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say, I don't know this. So let's learn it together. Or how do we work on this together? So that's one thing which I think is a big change that people are keep telling me this, and I get better solutions because of this. Otherwise it was just a one thought solution. So that's the second thing which I think has impacted me. And the third thing I think very importantly is that there are different kinds of leadership, and we all know, the leadership styles. Maybe I got in the role as the authority, but what I'm enjoying is how it's growing a little more when the people who were there with me 13 years back, I was a member, like a member with them. You can see that they're okay to listen to me or accept me as a leader. That gets a different this thing. So that means skill enhancement or learning more.
Since you mentioned that leaders shouldn't take themselves too seriously and they need to let their hair down, how important is self care in your daily life?
See, anytime that you are not fit mentally or emotionally or physically, it impacts you as a leader. Let's face it. There are days, even now, when I am tired, that I might react or respond differently compared to I'm kind of, physically fit. So I guess, yes, a leader has to take care of himself or herself. So a person like me wants 15 minutes or 30 minutes out time in the middle of the day. I want it. That's it. That helps me be better even at, the second half of the day. I think leader has to discover their biorhythm and work as per that. For some people, 6 hours of sleep is enough. For some people, for me, I know on an average, I need 8 hours per day. When I'm talking of that, 30 minutes also is a part of that. Otherwise, I'm not thinking at my best. I'm not reacting at my best. That's one thing. The second thing is each one of us has, I think, personal challenges, problems, or things happening with us. Till we don't take time to sit down and reflect on it and be at peace with whatever's happening. Maybe you can't do anything about it. Maybe it's, you can't solve everything and you can't change the world in one day for yourself also. But as long as you know that this is happening to you and this is something which is impacting you, you can probably say, yes, I know you're there. And now I'm going to go into this mode. So I can let go right now. I'm lucky that I had to learn this very fast through whatever times I've gone through or whatever's happened. That shutting one side of you off when you're doing another thing, being there, being in present, enjoying what's happening at that time rather than, something which works. So that's, I think, second. The third part of, I guess, how you deal with yourself is if a leader stops having new experiences, I don't think he can bring something new in there. And when I say new experiences, learning experiences is one, life experiences is also that. So now it's up to each person what is a good experience. For someone, it could be trying out a new Scotch whiskey or a new single malt whiskey. That's an experience for them. That's good for them. Okay, for some like me, it would be jumping off a building, jumping off a bridge. So yeah, that's the next thing I want to do. I want to have a bungee jumping experience, and I really need that to get thinking differently. I've done all crazy stuff because every time you come out of that, you get fresh thoughts, you get another bent of creativity coming in you, of thinking out of the box, And I believe it's important for each person to do that. I love cooking for that matter, because it's like creating something. Sometimes it turns out really awful, but believe me, the solutions I find after that is much better as a leader. Then I found, even if I cooked up something awful, which actually is only valid for the dustbin, but even then the mind is different.
You said it right. Awareness is the first step to any change. So yes, as long as the leader is aware where he is or where he or she or they are feeling and get themselves back into the present moment, being very mindful, then I think they'll be in a much better position to handle their business as well as themselves. Right. So last thoughts. Okay. What are your thoughts on how leadership will evolve in future? And any message that you have for our future leaders?
Yeah, so I think there are 7 things that every leader might have. I mean, I was just thinking of, what do I want to do in the future? And so the first thing I've been talking about all the time, the pace of change is rapidly increasing. And so one will have to keep upskilling oneself for handling this if you want to be a relevant leader for those times. The second thing is that, hybrid has become a way of life. So, there's some things which are going to continue. You will have to adopt, like we are being right now, instead of doing a face-to-face or a video, chat. The third is digital world is a reality. You will have to be present on the digital world. You, your company, yourself, if you want to make a personal brand, your brand will have to be visible over there. The fourth is artificial intelligence is a reality. We will have to start using that in our businesses. That's where the efficiencies are going to come in. That's where the next stage is going to come in of the growth. The next part I feel is this is the I think the fifth one, which I believe we will have to find purpose and meaning in what we do. And I think earlier we did something because we had to earn money. That cannot be the reason anymore. So, as you know, even in my book, the why section is a huge one. And the reason why it's there is because I believe that when people don't know why they're doing what they're doing, they aren't able to convey that across also, and they can't find people to join their cause. So you can only have people join your cause if you have one. So you got to know that. So it's important to that. The sixth change, I think, which we have to prepare for, globalization is here. Whatever your business, if there's going to be AI, digitalization, your competition has just become global. So you have to look at expanding yourself globally also and find ways to do that, become relevant, not only across your territory, across your country, but maybe across, multiple places to survive and to grow faster. I mean, the rate of growth can be much faster in that. And finally, the last of it, I believe, is you've got to set your culture right in your organization, in your business, in whatever you're doing right now. We are living in an age of what we call the great resignations. Okay, so till you don't have your purpose and you don't have your culture right, it's going to be more and more difficult to attract the right people as you grow, or you want to grow in your whatever you're doing as a leader. Even if you are a CEO of a company, even if you're employed, you have to know to attract the right people and to get them to work with you. So I think these 7 things a leader will have to prepare for the future.
And it starts with the purpose, like you said. It's very important. And actually, I was reading this up yesterday that in the last 9 months, almost 20 billion has been invested in Indian startups. This news came up yesterday, which means that startup is just going to blow. And we already are at $315 billion startup industry. And I am sure that using networking organizations, using the way of connecting with people, starting with purpose, all these contribute to creating a sustainable business and creating the Atmanirbhar Bharat. So thank you so much, Bharat.
Thank you, Aparna. Yes, it was great being here. It's been fun.
My pleasure, my pleasure.